I was a one-man show, closet warrior, as we say, and Rich gave me the courage to realize that I had a real business. And from there, I was able to go not from just a 7-figure business, but to an 8-figure business within the next 2 years.
I went from making a 5-figure income to a 7-figure income.
My blog went from $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month and then $20,000 a month. I believe we went from 1.3 million to 2.4 million within a year.
We were fairly new in the business of doing internet marketing, and we did not know what we did not know.
The recession had just hit. I had lost half my business. I just wasn't sure what to do at that point.
The best way I could explain it would be if you had a dumpster fire and you were pouring more gas on the dumpster fire.
Grabbing everything I could because I wanted to make money, but then at the end of the day, it wasn't serving my business.
You individually need to do more. That's what I thought. I thought success was based on how hard you work, how many hours you work.
Everybody else was just coming up with the tricks and the hacks. Here was this guy who brought not just practical digital online marketing wisdom, but he brought practical business with him.
Everybody I know is like, you need to know Rich. I'm like, Rich who? I don't know Rich. Rich who?
This is the guru's guru. This dude teaches all the people that we're all reading from.
You got to go to the guru to the gurus.
This guy is the guru to the gurus.
When you get inside kind of the inner circles, everybody knows who Rich is.
Rich was the first person who really explained online marketing in a way that I really could understand and apply.
It was like the light came on in a dark room and I saw, there's a whole layer to running a business I'd never thought about.
Since the time that I started working with them, I've generated, millions and millions of dollars in revenue.
More money started coming in. Then all of a sudden I'm producing products and coaching programs and building an audience that needs what I am good at.
And I'm getting $5,000 for my 12-week program. I'm getting $2,000 for my 4-week program.
But I want to say this, that it's been about more than just the money. I feel like in many ways, he gave me my life back.
Besides being a guy who thinks strategically and thinks in terms of solution, Rich is a good guy.
And it's really refreshing to have somebody with his caliber of knowledge who you can tell really cares.
It was freedom. That's the easiest way I could put it. It was freedom.
A sense of freedom, a sense of hope and future, where I could see a path to get to where I wanted to go that I wasn't going to get to on my own.
Someone like Rich can really put worth in you that you're not seeing.
Confidence. In business, so much of our success depends on our own internal confidence.
Having the confidence, knowing the fundamentals and understanding how the business moves.
He works with people who are having your same problem. So he's able to show me someone like me. It's not just someone talking about hypotheticals. These are tried tactics that he's done year in, year out.
I'm glad he's back around, helping people.
I'm excited that he's coming out of retirement for this. That's a big deal.
I can certainly recommend it, without hesitation. I know that anything that comes out from Rich Shepard is going to be top quality.
Best coach, best mentor of my life.
His main concern is making sure that he's delivering more than he promises in every project that he works on.
It had a huge impact on my business, so I'm excited for all the people who will benefit from it this go round. I would just say do it before he goes back into the vault.
I think that you will get just some immense value from working with him.
Even better than he seems, which is rare on the internet.
Hello. Welcome everyone to a Tuesday live stream. My name is Rich Sheffrin. I do these live streams every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays from 2 to 4 Eastern, Thursdays from 6 to 8. And we've been talking about the flow state in the last 2 live streams. We're going to continue talking about it today. I finally did break open the books, the notes, and started to review them for you guys. And let's see what else is new and exciting. I hope everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day. My daughter Ava is watching right now in Syracuse. So hi, Ava. Good to see you. And let's see. I spent my morning getting my face injected. I was given a gift of Botox type of stuff. I've never done that stuff before, but it was for my 50th birthday. I was given the gift. And so I spent my morning getting injections in my face. And I'm curious. They say you got to wait like 2 weeks to see what it looks like when it's done. We'll see. Anyway, so maybe it'll take some years off. What else is new? Yeah, so I hope everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day. I did. I got to see my mom up in Palm Beach, and my sister was in town from France with her 2 daughters, my nieces. And so it was a really great time. And rest of the weekend just kind of hung out. I also hired a new assistant, CJ, and he'll be working right there. It's really odd. I don't know how many of you have this, but I just work better with a witness when there's someone else around. So I'm almost embarrassed to admit that, right? That as a 50-year-old man, I should be able to get the same amount of work done, whether someone's watching me or not, right? But there's just something about having a witness that makes a difference for me. And so we're going to talk more about flow. We're going to go over the original book, right? Michael Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's book, Flow, right? Which really was the pioneering book of flow. And I reread my notes, I think soon after we did the last live stream, and was really happy that I did, and had regret that I hadn't really had the chance to do it beforehand. So we're going to get to that. So if you're just joining us, or you've been here before, you know that I ask you to say hi. Let me know where you're from. Let me know where you're watching it from. And then in addition to that, if you're watching this on YouTube, please press thumbs up and subscribe. If you're watching it on Facebook, thumbs up or emote. Comment on either one, or LinkedIn. And if you're watching on YouTube, though, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, you should really join our Facebook group. There's a lot of really great free stuff there, and you can join for free. The name of the Facebook group is Strategic Profits. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, then go ahead and connect with me. And let's see what else is new and exciting. I'm trying to think, but I'm drawing a blank, maybe because I spent so much time this morning traveling, coming back, etc. So thanks, James Von Elswick. That was his birthday present to me. And I figured, since he's going to be in town next week for Geek Out, I wanted him to see the effects of the gift. And so that's that. And I'm really excited about Geek Out. And I think you guys might have seen that I sent out some emails for it. Geek Out is one of the most high-end, kind of workshop seminars that's mainly, well, it's like a mastermind kind of, but really high-level e-commerce people. They normally have about 50 people. This time they opened it up to 100, and they oversold. And so it's too late to buy tickets or anything like that. But I'm super psyched. And James and Nick are coming into town on Tuesday. And so I'll be heading down on Tuesday. And Matt Rizvi is coming down here on Thursday night, and we're going to be powwowing. And I guess on Tuesday, we will have Matt in the house, and maybe we'll do the live stream from somewhere else. So that's all exciting. So let's say hello to who's with us, and then we'll jump into flow. And then in addition to that, I guess we'll play it by ear, but going to try and record a YouTube video on flow today, depending on how well things go today. So good afternoon, Jason in Tampa. Good to see you. And Dr. Vogelman in San Diego, Coronado Island. And there's my daughter. Hello, Ava. So good to see you. And I might as well put it out there, and I'll mention it at the end too. Ava is also studying marketing and advertising at Syracuse University, and she wanted my help with getting an internship. So I've made some calls. She wants to stay in New York City, and unfortunately, the number of connections I have in marketing are less than ever before as it relates to New York. So I have my friend Jeff, who is exploring possibly getting her a media buyer's job at CBS. She worked at Agora last summer in graphics and media buying. And I'm also spoke to my friend Chris Mulvaney, who owns an agency out in New Jersey, and she could always commute back and forth a couple days a week. But if anyone knows anyone in either New York City for my daughter Ava there, or in Delray for my youngest daughter Elle, anyone helps my kids out, that's the way to my heart, and you will have someone on your side for whatever you want, whenever you want, because those are my girls. Anyway, Jose, nice to see you, Jose. Where are you from? And Gary, I'm doing well, Gary. How about you? How you doing? And Lisa in Miami, good to see you. And Ava's happy. Shared to Twitter, apparently a new option on Facebook. Wow, very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Vogelman. The more shares, the merrier. It helps us get our message out. And I do this to help entrepreneurs. So wherever you share it, you'll be helping people. Hi, Priya in Israel. Good to see you. And go Orange. That's right. Gunther, hi, Rich. Great to finally catch you live. I normally catch the replay from Johannesburg, South Africa. I love your stuff. And as long as your lives are, they are like a good book. I can't stop watching. You always provide such value. Thank you. Well, my pleasure, Gunther. Mark Flint, happy 50th. Thanks, man. I was given the gift of wrinkles. Yeah, so was I on my forehead. And they asked me about my forehead. I'm like, I think it's a lost cause, my forehead. I'd just rather focus on my eyes and my cheeks. Thank you, Gunther, for sharing. Abul, great. Cool. Yeah, I do better under adult supervision. That's why I fired my staff. Isabella, how are you doing, Isabella? I see that you are posting a lot. You're doing a lot, and good for you. And I hope that whatever goals you're trying to accomplish, you and Michael Lassen, I hope you're crushing it. I really do. And if I can be of help, just let me know. Greetings from the Philippines. Very cool, Mark. I hope you're enjoying the Philippines. And Brian from Houston, good to see you. Dr. Vogelman shared 4 times, so he is my superstar. Thank you. Alex, nice to meet again. And where did I go? There we go. We're almost through these. And I started watching you from the shelter. It's bombing outside. Oh, Jesus. Who's bombing? Do you know, Priya? I guess it's the Palestinians. Happy face. Hi, it's Rajetta from India. Would be looking younger after Botox. Well, that's the plan, right? The goal is when I lose weight these days, like I get these long lines here because like the face is starting to, gravity's working its toll. Witness, most of us ADHDers work so much better with a body double, whether they watch us or not. Even if they're reading a book, as long as they're in the same room, co-working on Zoom helps too. Yeah, I thought about that, Pat. My friend told me about a online platform that just like syncs people together. You say how long you want to work, and then they like put you with someone else. You share what your goal is, they share what their goal is, and you both like are seeing each other while you're working. And yeah, they could even read a book. It's really strange. Like it's not something that I like about myself. I wish I could get the same level of work, the same output without having someone around. Not because I don't enjoy having people around. I actually do, but it's just somewhat restrictive and debilitating that you can't get your best work done unless there's someone else around. Sorry. Good afternoon, Rich from Highland Beach. Hey, Glenn, good to see you. And from Nottingham, UK. Well, welcome, Nick. And Amit from Toronto. Any advice on note-taking software that resides on my device and not on some company cloud storage? Well, Evernote is in both, right? If you use Evernote on your desktop, it will save text files to your desktop, or will save some kind of file, but it also is syncing to the cloud. And I would imagine you would want that, wouldn't you? So that you have redundancy, and also it's on every device. Like, I mean, I have my Evernote on my phone, on my iPad. I mean, I was working on it this morning when I was in the waiting room. So is that not good enough for you though, Amit? Hola, Sebastian. Good to see you. My sister is in the house. Hey, Nadine, can you see a difference now that I got Botox? Hey, Rich, Eddie here from Chicago. Happy 50th. Looking great, my friend. Thank you, Edward. And Emmy J on YouTube. Good to see you, Emmy. And Hugo. Hey, Rich, how are you? Hello from Miami, Florida. I only heard the last part of the event in Miami. Any news? Yeah, it's sold out. It's sold out, Hugo. I'll be down there. I don't know if you were able to get a ticket or not. I assume that you didn't, since that's what you posted. If you didn't, I'll still try. Like, we'll get in touch with one another. And since I'll be down in Miami, I rented an Airbnb. I'll be down there in Wynwood. Hopefully we can get together and I can introduce you to some people. Ava Sheffrin in the house. Nadine Sheffrin in the house. You have one more girl, LOL. How about your sister? She needs help too. Yeah, well, that's a different kind of help, I think. Rob Braddock, bro, come to Texas. You were supposed to come to Florida, and now I'm offended that you're going to this event in Orlando, and you didn't even think to stop possibly in Delray Beach. you bastard, Rob Braddock. Hey, April, good to see you. And can't help. I can help with a perfect contact in New York. Silvana, Corey Wright, then message me in Facebook. And if it works out, I will be forever in your debt. Hey, forget about it, Rich. Yeah, I can't forget about it because it's my daughter watching from Manhattan. Oh, very cool. Where in Manhattan, Jose? Uptown, downtown. I'm in the UK. Don't post your number. How else do I DM you the details? Through Facebook. Send me a friend request in Facebook, and I will accept it, Silvana, and then we can talk. So I'm just making a note. And CJ, if you're listening, if you can also just make sure that we make sure to friend Silvana, then that would be great. Silvana. Okay. All right, cool. Let's keep going. Hey, Rajesh in India and Christy in Georgia. I am. Okay. Donna, Boston. Hey, Donna. Good to see you. I don't think I've ever seen you before. Welcome. And I'm listening to you while running and feeling the perfect flow. Awesome. Hey, from Toronto. Hey, Len. And Brandon. Hey, Rich. Great topic, flow. So many factors can lead to flow and a domino effect. And so many things could disrupt it. Yes, so many things could disrupt it. It's Kurt. Hey, Kurt Seamers. Oh, Kurt Seamers, long time no see. And Nick, hey, Nick in Florida. Where are you in Florida? Are you close to me? Oops, I tried fired. I meant hired. Yeah, I was wondering, maybe you just didn't want to work. Hey, Kurt Seamers. And I discovered it by accident many years ago before diagnosed, felt really embarrassed. Now I 100% accept it. I actually can. You look great. Cool. Yeah, well, that's cool. They said it takes like 2 weeks to get the full effects. So we'll see. Question. I'm creating a new membership and can't get my avatar pin down despite my 32 years of marketing. My existing community is super diverse, all age groups, genders, and income. Is there any more there? Let's see. Okay, Mark. So what's the question now? Obviously, you need help with your avatar. Cool. Please let me know when is the event? The event is next week on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Hey, Rich, last session was awesome. Well, thanks, Sandeep. I didn't think last time was awesome, and I didn't think the time before that was awesome, if I'm going to be blatantly honest about my own performance. And as I reviewed my notes, I had even more regret that I didn't review them sooner, and so I feel like I owe you guys an apology, if anything. Uptown. Oh, very cool. Hey, Gareth. What's up with you, dude? And in London. Very cool. Hey, Rich, but having others around, I agree, helps me as well. Although I have learned who the other person can be a big deal. Yeah, that is a huge deal. If the person is someone who constantly interrupts or stuff like that, that actually works against you. Happy Tuesday, Ron, in Champaign, Illinois. And I'm in Riverview, Florida, just out of Tampa Bay. I'm also going to be in, I think, St. Pete's. Is St. Pete's? I think St. Pete's. I'm going to be at the Unicorn / Leaks Mastermind in St. Pete's. That's in June. I'll tell you more about it. So anyway, you know, one of the things that we were talking about in the comments, and might as well also talk about it here, is that you know, I have ADD. And one of the things, you know, so it never even occurred to me that I had ADD. And after a really bad business deal going south and getting screwed by people I loved, my personality changed. And I went from someone who hardly ever lost their temper to someone who consistently lost my temper and became kind of an asshole after, like, I had gotten screwed over in this deal. So when we moved down to Florida, like, one of the first things I did was I found a psychologist that I could work with, because I wanted to get back to my old self, right? I had this rage, and this rage would just come out like anywhere and everywhere. And that just wasn't me. So after working with the psychologist for about 6 months and finally like getting that rage discharged, so to speak, and returning to who I was before, my last appointment, the psychologist said, I think you might have ADD and you might want to check that out. Now, when I heard that, I thought that that was the most absurd thought that I'd ever heard, because like when I was in college, I would hyper focus consistently. And so to me, the idea that I had like ADD, like just didn't jive right with what I thought of ADD. And it wasn't until later when I read the book, and then I was like, oh my God, they're describing me. But the hyper focus state is a very similar state to flow. And so I think that, you know, when you have ADD, there is a challenge with the prefrontal cortex, right? And it makes sense then that when you're in flow, the prefrontal cortex, you know, kind of like moves backwards, right? Kind of becomes less present in your day to day. So anyway, I want to get to the notes, because as I was going through this, I just felt like I had done you guys a disservice not having these the way I wanted them before. And I'm still not done with these notes, so we'll see how far we get today. But I think that I got a lot of good stuff to share with you. So I'm excited about that. So let's get into this, right? Let's see here. No, we don't want to do it that way. Well, first I want to add that to the screen, and I want to make myself smaller and that bigger. Can you guys see that? I tried to make these as big as I possibly could. They're really big. Okay. So as you guys know, or not as everyone here knows, but as some of you know, when I read a book, right, I've always highlighted books. I've always been a voracious reader. And about 10 years ago or what have you, actually it was longer than that, I pulled one of my books from my bookshelf. And for some reason, I have a crappy memory, but I can remember where I read anything or where information came from. I can even remember like where on the page it was. And I went to a book that I had read a long time ago because I wanted to get that section, and all my highlights had faded. So now I was kind of like panicked. Anyway, ever since then, whenever this was back before there were everything was digital, I used to highlight and then bring it to the office. They'd chop the book, like chop the binding off, scan the whole book, send it to the Philippines, and then get someone in the Philippines who would take everything I highlighted out of the book. Then I would speed read that. Nowadays, I highlight, but I don't have to send it to the Philippines. I can just export it, right? Those exports go into Evernote. So what's in Evernote are just what I highlighted from the book, but I over-highlight because I'm never going to look at the book again. And then once it's in Evernote, then I go through what I learned from Tiago Fort, which is this process of progressive summarization. And that is where the first time I'm looking at the note, I'm actually bolding anything I think is important. But then after that, the next time I use that note, I will then highlight parts of the bold that I think is even more important. Then after that, I will take what I've highlighted and consolidate it, and then I'll write my own thoughts about it. Now, I don't do that for everything. All the books I read now go into Evernote, but whether I do the progressive summarization really depends on whether or not I am going to use that note. So I only review notes and go deeper into notes when I use them. And so I can quickly see how many times I've touched a note based on how much work has been done on it. And the idea is that what makes a note valuable is the amount of attention I give it. That'll make more sense later. Let's dive in. All right. So Aristotle concluded, more than anything else, men and women seek happiness, right? And we all know this. That's why we do almost everything we do. Viktor Frankl, many of you know, wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you're going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a course greater than oneself. Now, we've talked about that so many times, right? If you want to be the best that you possibly can be, you have to ultimately pursue something that is bigger than yourself. Because when you're pursuing things for yourself, it's very easy to let yourself off the hook. If you don't feel like working today and you're doing everything for yourself, then at the end of the day, like you can just let yourself off the hook, right? But if you're committed to creating some change in the world that is bigger than just your own fate, but the fates of others, then it pulls forth from you something bigger, something better, okay? And that's often the story behind great people. So flow, right, begins, and we're kind of like tipping our toe in here in these notes. And maybe I should, let's see if oh, you know what? I was looking at the wrong notes. I mean, you're looking at the right notes. I have them on different computers. So here we go. All right. So Aristotle concluded more than anything else that men seek happiness, right? I just read you the Viktor Frankl quote. And flow is an optimal experience, right? And there's a lot of like incongruities in the sense that we think we want relaxation and relaxation leads to happiness. Yet we're most happy when we're in pursuit, when we're engaged in life. And that is what leads to an optimal experience. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Optimal experience is thus something that doesn't happen to us, right? It's something that we have to make happen. And because we have to make it happen, the onus is all on us, whether we get into that state or not. Now, this is important, and this is something that we didn't discuss. We touched on it, but we didn't really go deep in it, and that is that whoa, I don't know what the hell just happened there. Yikes. Let me go back. Let me go back here. Whoa. Where the hell did that book notes go? All right. Hold on. The line that I wanted to really kind of call everyone's attention to, that I'm going to bring back in a second, is that even though flow is an optimal state, right, it is not necessarily a pleasant experience when it is actually occurring. There we go. And now I have to share this, I guess. All right. So now I got to share a new page here. So I'm going to get rid of this for a second, guys. Let's do this. Stop screen. All right. And now we're going to add a new one. And I apologize about this, guys. At some point, I'm going to get CJ in place so that like I can actually have someone here who's like, there we go. All right, cool. And now I can make this bigger and make this bigger and bring this over. Does that make any difference? No? No. Okay, but I can make it bigger this way. All right, cool. All right, so there we go. All right. I know we got off to a bumpy start. Okay, so it's not necessarily a pleasant when it occurs. Okay. I developed a theory of optimal experience based on the concept of flow, the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. And to me, that's hyper-focus. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Now, that seems to be in direct contradiction, right, to the sentence before it, that it's not necessarily pleasant at the time that they occur. It's not necessarily. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I think it really depends on the activity. But what is consistent amongst all flow states is that what resides in consciousness is the task, and not a lot of the clutter of like random thoughts, not distractions, not concern for self, and any other things that fill our mind on a pretty consistent basis. Okay. Because optimal experience depends on the ability to control what happens in consciousness moment by moment, each person has to achieve it on the basis of his own individual efforts and creativity, right? No one can get you into flow. Everything we experience, joy or pain, interest or boredom, is represented in the mind as information, right? Everything coming in is information. If we're able to control this information, we can decide what our lives are going to be like. The pursuit of a goal, and this is what, like, I think a lot of my experience that I was sharing with you on Thursday relates to, right? That the pursuit of a goal, it brings order and awareness, because a person must concentrate attention on the task at hand and momentarily forget everything else. These periods of struggling to overcome challenges are what people find to be the most enjoyable times of their life, right? So this is one of the reasons why when I took time off in the past that I felt less and less fulfilled. And the reason I did is that without that goal, without giving the order in life, like alignment in what I'm doing, everything seems somewhat meaningless, and there is no optimal experience. And it's these flow experiences that greatly contribute to the quality of your life. Most people spend large amount of their lives working and interacting with others. It is crucial that one learn to transform jobs into flow-producing activities. Only direct control of experience, the ability to derive moment by moment enjoyment, from everything we do, can overcome the obstacle to fulfillment. All right. There is no inherent problem in our desire to escalate our goals as long as we enjoy the struggle along the way. The problem arises when people are so fixated on what they want to achieve that they cease to derive pleasure from the present. When that happens, they forfeit their chance of contentment. And that's what I called in the book that I wrote, or report, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's over 100 pages, so I guess it's a book. The hidden obstacles to success, right? That I called the destination disease, thinking somehow magically that everything's going to be wonderful at some future point in time because of something, right? So I certainly felt this way when I was young and fat. Like if I could only be thin, life would be perfect. I got thin, life was not perfect, right? Like we always think that when we achieve something, when we get something, that life, well, we don't always, but that life is going to be very different. And if that's what fuels you, that's what sets you up for a midlife crisis, because what you find is that the achievement of anything is nowhere near as fulfilling as attempting to achieve that thing. Okay. The shields of culture. Genuinely happy individuals are few and far between. The roots of discontent are internal, and each person must untangle them personally with his or her own power. So I was being interviewed last night, and in the interview, it was live on Instagram. So I'm sure people can find it if they want. And in the interview, I was asked about what advice would I have for my 20-year-old self if I could leave one piece of information. And I said, well, I'm not sure, and here's why. I know what that is, but I don't know that at 20 I would really kind of absorb it, because I don't think it's anything unique and original if I could somehow convey its importance, right? And it was something that we talked about on Thursday, which is this: life is an internal experience we mistake for an external one, right? There is nothing that's going to be different for us internally when something externally happens. We like to think that it does, and it's the cause, and etc. But the truth of the matter is that everything in life is an internal experience that we mistake for an external one. And so I was saying that if I could convince myself that that would be the most important thing, right? Because we've talked about a lot of like quotes, statements that are profound in different ways. Like, you know, when it comes to perfectionism, that perfectionism is trying to convince the world something about yourself that you don't believe about yourself, right? Perfectionism is trying to convince the world something about yourself that you don't believe about yourself, or that no amount of self-help will ever lead to self-acceptance. What all of those two other comments about self-help, right, and leading to self-acceptance, and perfectionism trying to trick the world into believing something about yourself that you don't believe about yourself, both of those go away if you truly get that life is an internal experience that we mistake for an external one, right? So that's why I shared that on that podcast, and why I so stress that point, right? That there is no where to get to. There's only a way to travel. The routes, okay. Some try to ignore it and renew their efforts to acquire. Yeah, as this realization slowly sets in, different people react to it differently. Some try to ignore it and renew their efforts to acquire more of the things that were supposed to make life good. Bigger cars and homes, more power on the job, more glamorous lifestyle. While humankind collectively has increased its material powers 1,000-fold, it has not advanced very far in terms of improving the content of experience, which we all would have to agree with, right? Like, what we can do is so leaps and bounds ahead of like where our grandparents were. But are we really any happier than our grandparents were? And if not, like, we should really reflect on that and understand that, you know, the point of life is not to get through it faster. That's not it. All right. Reclaiming experience. To overcome the anxieties and depressions of contemporary life, individuals must become independent of their social environments to the degree that they no longer respond exclusively in terms of rewards and punishments. To achieve such autonomy, a person has to learn to provide rewards to herself. She has to develop the ability to find enjoyment and purpose regardless of external circumstances. The challenge is both easier and more difficult than it sounds. Easier because the ability to do so is entirely within each person's hands. Difficult because it requires discipline and perseverance that are relatively rare in any era, and perhaps especially in the present. And before all else, achieving control over experience requires a drastic change in attitude about what is important and what is not. We grow up believing that what counts most in our lives is that which will occur in the future. As Freud and many others before him and after him have noted, civilization is built on the repression of individual desires. And the most effective form of socialization is achieved when people identify so thoroughly with the social order, they no longer can imagine themselves breaking any of its rules. Now, one of the reasons that I love what it is I do, one of the reasons I'm so dedicated to the entrepreneurial journey is that as an entrepreneur, you're already breaking from the pack. You're already deciding that you are not just going to follow all the rules. Be at work at 9, leave at 5, be a good little employee, collect a check, report back the next day. As an entrepreneur, you've decided to forego some of that false security, right, that a job provides, and willing to like bank on yourself. And I respect and I admire that. It's also, in my opinion, one of the only true ways to have autonomy. A thoroughly socialized person is one who desires only the rewards that others around him have agreed he should long for. Rewards often grafted onto genetically programmed desires, right? The messages are very different, but their outcome is essentially the same. They make us dependent on a social system that exploits our energies for its own purpose. And, you know, I'm going to check in with the comments in a minute or two, but like, you know, my girlfriend, Kim, right, who I've been with for close to 10 years now, she's retired, but used to work with the uber wealthy at Bank of America and Merrill Lynch. She was a big shot there, and all of her clients were billionaires. And when I looked out at the lives of some of Kim's clients that I got a chance to meet, I wouldn't trade my life with any of them. And they were all worth a lot more than me. But the quality of their life was not. And I think so often, right, people conform. They conform even when they don't realize they're conforming, because they've already bought into certain societal beliefs. And, you know, my belief about that is that, like, who cares? Who cares what society thinks? I could care less, right? In fact, I have to make myself care a little bit because of what I do. But if I wasn't involved in anything public facing, like, you know, I'd use less social media, not more. That's for sure. But I think if you think about it, how many of the things do you do? Not necessarily because you love doing them, but more so because you're expected to, right? Like I guess, you know, some people call people like me blunt and rude. I kind of consider it more true. And what I mean by that is, like, look, if I'm going over to like when I would go over to my family's house, not for Mother's Day, but like in the past, like my cousins, right? All my cousins getting together, my aunts and uncles, like all the men would go downstairs and watch football. I don't watch football. All the women would get together and they'd be talking, and the kids would be like playing video games. I would just sit in the corner and read. Like, I had no concern of, like, these were not activities I wanted to do. They wouldn't be if I was home. They wouldn't be if I was with friends. So why would I want to do these things? I'd rather just sit with a good book and read. So anyway, let's check in with you guys, and then we'll let's see. The solution is to gradually become free of societal rewards and learn how to substitute for them rewards that are under one's own powers. The most important step in emancipating oneself from social controls is the ability to find rewards in the events of each moment. All right, we'll just finish this one before we go to Path of Liberation, which we'll check in with you guys. And the great Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not that they disturb you, but your own judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." And that's couldn't be said any more clearly, I think. All right, so let's now check back in with you guys, see what you guys have to say. All right, cool. Do I have some kind of training program for marketers? Well, I do have a monthly continuity program called Steal Our Winners, where each and every month we deliver anywhere from 8 to 12 strategies that are currently crushing it online that the world doesn't know about. So we have over 100 contributors, everyone from like Russell Brunson, Mike Filsaime, Ryan Levesque, et cetera. And they only come when they've got something new to share. So I think it's the best marketing product out there because you're getting tactics that are proven years before they're in a course, when they're most powerful, without all the fluff, without all the extra cost. and just the tactics. Good God, you never need to apologize. We are always our worst critics. Was cut off, sorry. Any advice on narrowing my avatar down for focused messaging if there are non-socio psychodemographic denominators identifiable? Would be super grateful for your take on this. Mark, there's a couple ways to skin this cat, Mark. Personally, if I'm sitting in your situation, I would like to call a bunch of customers, especially brand new ones, if you have any kind of flow. And like what made you decide to purchase today? Was this something that you've been thinking about? Like, were there any challenges that kind of made this more necessary today than before, et cetera? Like, I think that, I think getting a handle on like the motivating factors oftentimes can even trump an avatar. Although I need to think about it more before I was going to be firm in that position. I would say, but like, look, anytime that I ever felt out of touch with the market, where like I had checked out for a year or two and I wanted to understand like what was going on, I would just pick up the phone and call all the people that had purchased the day before on our webinar. And they would be surprised to hear from me. And I would be welcoming them and then asking, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Like, how long have you known about me? What made you decide to attend the webinar? Was there anything specific on the webinar that you felt you really needed? That was why you bought, like, et cetera. And within 10 conversations, I would have a better feeling of it. So that would be my first bit of advice, Mark. The other things that you can do are, I don't know if you can also, I read this great book. I'm totally going on a tangent here for a second, but Email by the Numbers. I read it a really long time ago, but it was a great book. And one of the things they talked about was the idea of surveying your customers, but just like one question at a time. Like, have people just answer a single question. Like, you could give some content, then have a question, right? As a way of getting more granularity there. I would say that if I'm you, though, the first thing I'm doing is I'm picking up the phone, Mark, and I'm speaking to a few of my customers. That's the very first thing. And then I would kind of lay that over, like, what different groups do I hit? Which group is easiest to sell? And then I would focus more in on that. I would use some kind of premium to sell the continuity, obviously, something that we've talked about numerous times. A good shrink will help you think. I use my OCD to keep my ADD in check. It's funny. Kim and I were walking to the ocean like 3 days ago, and about a half a block away from the ocean, I'm like, okay, let's turn around. And she's like, don't you want to get to the ocean? And I'm like, well, we're here. And she's like, oh, I'm so OCD that I need to touch the ocean. I'm like, really? Like, it's close enough, right? And she's like, you are so not OCD. And I'm like, yeah, I'm adaptable. That's why. Diagnosed as ADD back in junior high school before it was popular. Yeah. I was diagnosed when I was 30. Quite visible. Hi, Rich. Hi, Haninali. Nice to meet you, Hanalali. Rich, please do not feel like you are doing us a disservice. You always provide valuable insights. That's why I keep coming back. Well, thank you, Amit. Hey, especially if you're in Enneagram 7. For which part? Like buying into societal norms, Teddy? And Teddy's a rock star. He's he had a program for a while, like where he would be like your CTO, like your chief technology officer. You could like buy some of his time. Teddy works with us, and he used to work with me full time. Now he works with Todd Brown and part time for me, moonlights, as we rebuild strategic profits. Priya, enjoy the way is indeed the best destination. It's the only way. Thanks for sharing about the anger. It's a really important concept in the flow discussion. The opposite of flow is stagnation, and very common when we have unresolved issues like a deal gone wrong. We end up with stagnation. One of the 7 signs and symptoms of stagnation is irritability and anger. If you can drop into hyper-focused states quickly, you'll be more prone to flow and stagnation. Yeah, the problem with like the hyper-focus for me was it wasn't like I could just pull the trigger and go into hyper-focus. Generally, I'd have to amp myself up with stimulants, right? I would have to chew nicotine, or I used to chew tobacco, now it's just nicotine gum. I'd have to have the pressure of like getting stuff done, like very present to me. And then I would go into this hyper-focus mode. And then because I would be so productive in that mode, I wouldn't want to leave it, especially because I wasn't sure when the next time I was going to get into it again. So a lot of times, like I would go, and I know this sounds crazy, but I'd go 48 hours, 60 hours straight, sitting at my desk, right? And I would do that because I was getting a lot done. And I was afraid that when I left, I couldn't rely on myself to just like go home, sleep for 8 hours and come back and then get back to work. It would be a whole nother process to kind of like, I feel like John Carlton once talked about like a dog like circling their mat before they lie down. I got to like walk around my desk and get into that like mental state. Emmy, life is an internal experience. It's a spiritual journey. We came to expand and grow. Our materialistic Western society got it twisted, and it's almost useless to try to convince them now a day. Who cares? Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of really good things that have come from this materialistic pursuit. Lighting, the us right now, the ability to communicate. There are a lot of great things, but there have to be clear boundaries. There have to be clear lines. And it's like right now, like I am the least educated about what's going on in the world than I've ever been in my entire life. Ever been. Like, I do not watch the news. I do not read the newspaper. It just got me angry. And I don't feel any responsibility to anyone to have to do that. So why do it, right? And but a lot of people would have a hard time with that, and they might have a hard time because they're addicted, but they also might have a hard time with it because they don't want to be ignorant about certain things. And the reason for that, though, is only because they don't want to be embarrassed. All right, so let's see. Live with Rich. Thank you, John Winkleman. The way I flow is hyper-focused. It's how I've been able to become so focused on new and different things. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to get to a lot of more how-to. I love your story about hanging with the billionaires. You had a perfect opportunity to see that money is not the be-all, end-all in life. There's more to life. Yes, things are easier if you don't have to look for the funding. True. But, even when you have money, like if you're not, at least for me, when I'm not in pursuit, I am not happy. I need to always be pursuing something. And when I don't, it's like there's a big void in my life and I'm very unhappy. Thank you. My pleasure, Julia. I found the key to happiness is being as fully present as possible in every moment and being consistently grateful for anything and everything. Hard to argue that, Teddy. Steal Our Winners is great. I've been doing it for a few months. Thanks, Richie. Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. Makes total sense. Cool. Rich, I read a lot like you, and I found that I decide that what I want to do, even when I've worked for corporations. I've always taken the outside route. CEOs and have always called me unorthodox in what I do and have respected me because of my counterintuitive approach. I don't give a damn about what people think, and I'm so glad my parents gave me this free rein to do things differently. I hear you. Getting our minds around life being an internal experience is not as simple as it sounds. I totally agree. It's not simple. If we look at the majority of people in poverty, they are there because they believe in external experience. Do you have something to help people get into and accept that internal experience? Well, look, there are plenty of people that are poor that are actually happier than people who are rich, right? And, there's this wonderful song. Well, I think it's wonderful. And I think it's wonderful because I can identify with it, but I also can appreciate that what I feel has to be 1/1000th of what he felt. So I know it's going to sound crazy. but Justin Bieber, he has a song called Lonely. And it's like, what if you had everything that you ever wanted, but nobody to call? It was, like that's the gist. Like, what if everyone knew you, you had everything, but there was no one to call? And that would be a very empty experience, wouldn't it? Yet, what do? We spend most of our time pursuing those things, right? When we really should recognize that those are fleeting, and for what? So I would say, so Gunther, it's hard, right? Like, I don't know that there's an easy answer to that. There certainly isn't. What I can say, though, is that there have been many times in my life where I've experienced something and at the time thought it was horrible, and then later on was so thankful that it happened. And nothing changed externally, just what I kind of interpreted the event to mean. And that we are constantly, like one of the things that was very clear to me as I went through Landmark and I read like LifeSpring stuff and S stuff, is that we are, human beings are meaning-making machines. Everything means something, right? Like nothing can just be. Everything means something. We have a story about everything. And we are assigning meaning to things all the time. And a lot of the time when we're assigning meaning, we're assigning disempowering meanings to things that at the end of the day, by doing that, we do ourselves a disservice and we make it more difficult to enjoy our life, to, feel great, etc. Right? So, when I got screwed in that deal, that made me feel like I needed to go to a psychologist and work that rage out. I don't look back at that time and say, thank God, right? But I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for that. And because of that, I have to be appreciative of it. And therefore, the external event hasn't changed. The internal experience has. Curious, I've watched you streaming for the last several weeks. Your marketing. They're 2 hours long. They're free. So how do you make money doing this? I don't make money doing this. This is not my bread and butter, right? Like, I do this to help you, right? I do this to help anyone that wants my help. And I have a track record, of growing one company by over $1 billion and being behind most gurus that are known today. So I think I know what I'm talking about. I have a front-end product called Steal Our Winners, which delivers the best marketing strategies out there, the most fresh, the most current, and the ones that work best. And we will, within a month or two, relaunch my coaching program, which was why I coached all those people before, because I used to coach. And so this gives people an experience of me, right? If someone wants my help personally to help them grow their business, which, is my sweet spot, then they got to pay. But I'm more than happy to help as many people as I can. And doing this is what allows me to be better known, to cause more people to want to do business with me, which makes it easier to sell. So hopefully that helps. Rock and rolla. Chasing experiences. Yes. My most creative moments come in 72-hour spurts where I feel that I must sprint during that time to get the very best results. I totally get your comments. Yeah, that's how I am too. Facebook or Instagram, which best ad platform for e-commerce, home decor working? Now, what should be special strategy for lead generation? Well, Rajen, I can't even pronounce it. Rajen, I'll just call you. Are you a subscriber of Steal Our Winners? If there are really good strategies currently in there for both of those. I should have said it. If you can get into deep hyperfocus, you'll be more prone to flow and stagnation, not quick. Sorry for the confusion. No problem, Nick. Leanne, I need to always be pursuing something too, learning or whatever it is. Yeah, there has to be something. I need to be in pursuit. And I first noticed that like after when I shared in the last live stream, like I had my very first girlfriend when I was a sophomore in college. She was a senior. Then we went out for that whole year. Then she graduated. She did Teach for America. And we did the long distance relationship for like 3 months. And then she found someone else. And I was miserable because like that was my first girlfriend and I didn't want it to end, but she moved away and it did end. And for a month or two, like my life was really shitty as I was heartbroken and missing her and feeling lonely and all those kinds of things. And then I saw this girl and had a crush on her. And then everything in life began to work as I wanted to get myself in the best possible place so I'd have the courage to ask her out, right? And it was amazing how everything in my life just came into order. Like because of that one goal, right? I started doing better in school. I started working out. I started taking better care of myself. Like all these things for that one goal. The removal of that goal, I wouldn't have done those things. And, you know, over my life, there's been many different things like that. But what was missing when I had achieved all these goals before I was 40 was the next goal and the reason for the next goal. Because I had goals in the past because I thought that right? It's something that I've shared a long time ago, and it's probably worth sharing again, that I followed a do, have, be model, which is superior in every way to a have, do, be model, right? So let me kind of break these down really quick. The have, do, be model is the model for losers. Because a have, do, be model says when I get certain things like a secret, a special software, a whatever, right? Then I'll do certain things and then I'll be certain things, right? So if I, have, do, be, right? So if I get certain things, if I have these secrets, I will do these things and then I'll be successful, right? That is a fool's way of looking at the world. The world doesn't invest in you first. Right? You can't be on this desperate search for resources. You have to be resourceful. But opportunity seekers, wannabes, dreamers, they follow the have, do, be model. I followed a do, have, be model, right? I will do certain things. And because I do those things, I will then have certain things. And then when I have those things, I will be certain things. So I will do this. I will grow a business, you know, do this, do that, the other thing. And then I will make money. And when I make money, I'll be able to buy all the things that I want. Have the nice life, right? And then because of that, I will be happy. And what I found is that no, I can do all those things. I can have all those things. And getting those things, I was happy for like a week or two. But then after that week or two, the happiness went away, the hedonic treadmill. So while that is a good recipe for accomplishment, right? Do, have, be in action, get what you want, and then be what you want, right? It doesn't really work on the last part, the fulfillment side. The only thing that works on the fulfillment side is be, do, have. So what I've realized is that when I am in pursuit, I'm happy. Right? And when I'm in pursuit, I will do the things that are necessary and I will get the things I want, but in pursuit is who I am. And when I take that when I embody that, I am fulfilled. So I hope that makes sense. Clearly defined goals and hunting it down equals fulfillment. Yeah. It's the hunt though. The excitement is in the chase, but not necessarily JP Morgan's chase. Totally agree. Rich, I have lost my sound, but I just wanted to point out that your reading list is impressive. Aristotle, Marcus Aurelius, etc. Apparently you believe reading broadly is relevant for business purposes and that there are many ideas and authors that bear on business and on life as well as reading on flow. Yes, I do. And I believe that I think there are different books that have different value, right? That there are certain books that were written by people who wanted to have a best-selling book, and those people, like, those books are obvious. But when someone has dedicated a career or a lifetime about certain things and then takes the time to distill that down into a few hundred pages so that you can capitalize on all of what they've learned, it's a gift, and it's one of the biggest gifts that anyone can give you. Gunther read The Untethered Soul. Oh, and text me if you want. Read The Untethered Soul. That's a great book. There's processing I do with people that gets people to have experience, direct truth experience afterwards. You have a reference point to what it is. That's interesting, Stefan. We should catch up again soon, man. Thank you, Rich, for doing these sessions. I'm recommending you to all the entrepreneurs of my network here in India. Well, thank you, Abidali. And how is everyone in India? Is the has COVID impacted you? I hear that India is like really in bad shape, or at least I saw that in passing somewhere. Oh, hey, Rich, do you determine your financial standard how do you determine your financial standard for your life? Not as well as I probably should, Jamie, and my girlfriend would certainly attest to that. For me, it's much more about freedom than it is anything else. It's when there have been a few times in my life where I couldn't afford to buy a book I wanted or things like that. And those times I felt really lacking in life. I also, though, don't have any dreams of having like a, $20 million mansion on the ocean or a private jet or a boat or any of those things. They're not really what turns me on. I'd love to have friends who have those so that I could partake, but I don't want the responsibility or the headaches or any of those things. So the thing I want most is peace of mind. And that's a much lower barrier, I'd say, Jamie, than what I think a lot of people have. Yes, you have to take action first. Yep. Do have is a bit of an identity shift. Yep. All right. So let's go back to the notes. Why not? Right. And let's dive in. All right. Passive liberation. In the East, techniques for achieving control over consciousness have, let me take Dr. Vogelman's. There. Okay. In the East, techniques for achieving control over consciousness proliferated and achieved levels of enormous sophistication. The yogi disciplines in India, the Taoist approach to life developed in China, and the Zen varieties of Buddhism all seek to free consciousness from the deterministic influences of outside forces. Why haven't we made more progress in this direction? It's a good question. The kind of knowledge or wisdom one needs for emancipating consciousness is not cumulative. It must be earned through trial and error experienced by each individual, generation after generation. Control over consciousness is not simply a cognitive skill, at least as much as intelligence. It requires the commitment of emotions and will. So this is really interesting, right? So let's go up a little bit to something I didn't highlight, which is answering the question, like, why have we progressed so much technologically, right? Versus so little, like, in consciousness. And it says here, there are at least two good explanations for this failure. In the first place, the kind of knowledge or wisdom one needs for emancipating consciousness is not cumulative, which also means it cannot be handed down, right? Nobody can give this to you. Nobody can do this thinking for you. You can't read it in a textbook and then be able to have it. At some point, you have to do the trial and error, right? And it also changes as cultural context changes, right? It was certainly easier to get into flow in certain ways, right? When there were no computers, there were no TVs, there was no nothing, and you read by candlelight. As suggested before, the way is through control over consciousness, which in turn leads to control over the quality of experience. And so this is why meditation, guys, is so critical. Because you have to quiet the mind to be in flow. And while it's totally different because you're absorbed as opposed to creating that peaceful state, meditating gives you more control over your concentration And flow is a function of concentration. The anatomy of consciousness. Those who take the trouble to gain mastery over what happens in consciousness do live a happier life. Totally agree. We all know individuals who can transform situations into challenges to be overcome just through the force of their personalities. This ability to persevere despite obstacles and setbacks is the quality most people admire in others. So it's probably the most important trait, not only for succeeding in life, but also for enjoying it as well. What do you guys think about that? Would you agree that to transform hopeless situations into challenges to be overcome? Would you agree that it's probably not only the most important trait in life, but for enjoying it as well? I'm not sure if I would go that far, but certainly is important. With that framework in mind, what then does it mean to be conscious? It simply means that certain specific conscious events, sensations, feelings, and thoughts, intentions are occurring and that we are able to direct their course. Okay, I can certainly understand that. Okay, the events that constitute consciousness, the things we see, feel, think, and desire, are information that we can manipulate and use. Thus, we might think of consciousness as intentionally ordered information. And it's that intentionally ordering that's very important, right? Because what did I say earlier, just even in my own experience, when I had that crush and I made it a goal that I was going to be like in the best me I possibly could be, right? What it did was it ordered my life. Everything came into order. And that oftentimes we're distracted by random thoughts. And if you've ever meditated, you know this to be true. And if you've never meditated, you might be like, what are you talking about? But it is true. Okay. We may call intentions a force that keeps information in consciousness ordered. Intentions arise in consciousness whenever a person is aware of desiring something or wanting to accomplish something. They act as a magnetic field, moving attention towards some shiny objects and away from others. Yeah, intentions, right? The nervous system has definite limits on how much information it can process at any given time. There are limits to consciousness. Thoughts have to follow each other or they just get jumbled. While we are thinking about a problem, we cannot truly experience either happiness or sadness. It is possible to process at most 126 bits of information per second, or 7,560 per minute, or almost 500,000 per hour. Over a lifetime of 70 years and counting, 16 hours of waking time each day, that amounts to 185 billion bits of information. The optimists claim that through the course of evolution, the nervous system has become adept at chunking bits of information so that the processing power and capacity is constantly expanded. But the ability to compress stimuli does not help as much as one might expect. The requirements of life still dictate that we spend about 8% of waking time eating and almost the same amount of time taking care of personal bodily needs such as washing, dressing, shaving, and going to the bathroom. These two activities alone take up 15% of consciousness. And while engaged in them, we can't do much else that requires super serious concentration. Not surprisingly, people report some of the lowest levels of concentration, use of skills, clarity of thought, and feelings of potency when watching television. I am so happy that I've gotten away from watching as much as I was watching. I used to not watch at all, and I need to get back to even more, really limiting my time watching YouTube. Therefore, the information we allow into consciousness becomes extremely important. It is, in fact, what determines the content and quality of our life. And that I couldn't agree with any more, right? We talked about that book several months ago called Wrapped, where really, at the end of the day, what you focus your attention on is going to determine the quality of your life. And at any given moment, there are many things that you could attend to. What you choose to put your attention on will determine whether you're happy or sad, whether you think the world is a great place or an evil place, etc. Attention as psychic energy. Driving down the highway, we pass hundreds of cars without actually being aware of them. It is attention that selects the relevant bits of information from the potential millions of bits that are available. Despite its great power, attention cannot step beyond the limits already described. It cannot notice or hold in focus more information than can be processed simultaneously. For example, the driver who notices the swerving car will have to stop talking on his cell phone if he wants to avoid the accident. The mark of a person who is in control of consciousness is the ability to focus attention at will, to be oblivious to distractions. The shape and content of life depends on how attention is being used. The names that we use to describe personality traits such as extrovert, high achiever, or paranoid refer to the specific patterns people have used to structure their attention. And I hope that makes sense for you guys, because I think it's important. Because attention determines what will or will not appear in consciousness, and because it is also required to make any other mental events, such as remembering, thinking, feeling, and making decisions, it is useful to think of it as psychic energy. Right? So attention is psychic energy. We create ourselves by how we invest this energy. Memories, thoughts, and feelings are all shaped by how we use it. And it is an energy under our control to do with as we please. Hence, attention is our most important tool at the task of improving the quality of our experience. Let me read that again, because I think it's critically important. We create ourselves by how we invest this energy. And the energy they're talking about is attention. Memories, thoughts, and feelings are all shaped by how we use our attention. And it is an energy that's under our control to do with as we please. Hence, attention is our most important tool in the task of improving the quality of our experience. Enter the self. The self, as we shall refer to it from now on, is also one of the contents of consciousness. I just want to see if there's anything. I want to get into some meatier stuff, and I want to make sure that. So I want to make sure that I get to some of the meatier stuff. Let me press on a little bit here for a second, and then we'll jump back to comments. All right. So there's. Okay. The self. So now we're talking about the self, right? And the self is no ordinary piece of information. We're talking about like self-consciousness, right? It contains everything else that has passed through consciousness. Right? The self represents the hierarchy of goals that we have built for ourselves over the years. At one point, we are saying that the self directs attention. At another, that attention determines the self. So it's circular, right? In fact, both these statements are true. Consciousness is not a strictly linear system, but one in which circular causality obtains. Attention shapes the self and is in turn shaped by it. So in other words, attention shapes the self, and then the self guides and shapes attention. Right? Goals and attentions. These processes are connected to each other by the self, or the dynamic representations we have of the entire system of our goals. One of the main forces that affects consciousness adversely is psychic disorder. That is, information that conflicts with existing attention or distracts us from carrying it out. All these varieties of disorder force attention to be diverted to undesirable objects, leaving us no longer free to use it according to our preferences. Psychic energy becomes unwieldy and ineffective, right? So if you've ever been in an argument or like upset, it's very hard to focus and get into flow when that's going on. Whenever information disrupts consciousness by threatening its goals, we have the condition of inner disorder or psychic entropy, a disorganization of the self that impairs its effectiveness. Prolonged experiences of this kind can weaken the self to the point that it is no longer able to invest attention and pursue its goals. Every piece of information we process gets evaluated for its bearing on the self, right? A new piece of information will either create disorder in consciousness by getting us all worked up to face the threat, or will reinforce our goals, thereby freeing up psychic energy. The opposite state from the condition of psychic entropy is optimal experience. When the information that keeps coming into awareness is congruent with the goal that we're focused on, right? The psychic energy flows effortlessly, and that is the flow state. All right, let's take a look at what we have here now. Let's go back to me for a second. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's see. All right. Jeremiah, being a doer always opens the doors as long as you embrace that with focusing on the end in mind. Everything else always works out for me because I'm remaining open. Yeah, agreed. God bless you. You don't know what a blessing it is to find your live streams. ADHD and related issues affect everything, including job and career. Thankful to find guidance and inspiration from someone who's lived it. Glad I joined Groove Edition of Strategic Profits. Oh, well, thank you for saying it. Look, you're in very good company as far as ADD minds, right? Like Jay Abraham has an ADD mind. You know, I do. Most of the gurus that I've coached do. Yeah, it's pretty common. Yes, I love having friends with boats and friends with horses as well as planes. Yep. You know, if it fly, floats, or fornicates, better to rent than own. Be to have is so superior that you get some of the emotional and mental gratification at the very beginning of the process instead of the end. Totally true, Lewis in Mexico. I prefer to call it mind management. That means you separate yourself from the mind in all senses. You observe them and choose the attention you wish to the relevant ones. Okay. There's satisfaction in the transformation of the negatives into the positives. Obstacles become opportunities. Yep. As Mark Ford once told me, I love obstacles because that's where I leave my competitors behind. TV is a time suck. Transforming hopelessness is a challenge and an opportunity. When I talk to young people about the problems they are experiencing, they always say no jobs or opportunities. I reply, everything you believe to be a problem is an opportunity. You just need to come up with the solution, but it must be a problem for most people, not just you. I would agree with that, Gunther. And the other thing I would say, like, I don't know about what's going on in other parts of the world. I know what's going on here in Florida. And here in Florida, most businesses are looking for employees. I was hanging out with a restaurant owner. He was talking about how difficult it is to find employees. Like, there's help wanted signs in almost every store that I pass here. And it seems as if there's plenty of jobs, but there's a lot of motivations maybe not to take jobs. I don't know. But haven't followed it. Don't care to. I disagree with him. The Supreme Yoga, we meditate 24/7. I'm not sure who you disagree with, Priya. Maybe me. Focus feeds our feelings. Yep. Rich, what is the name of the book with rap that you mentioned? It's Wrapped. R-A-P-T. Just Wrapped. And it's all about like attention's power, like pervasively through your life. Attention plus emotion can encourage locomotion or moving forward with ideas. I like that, Dr. Vogelman. Self-consciousness. The self is consciousness itself. The self is not nourished by selfies. I disagree with him. He attributes mind qualities to self. That is inaccurate. You're talking about self from a spiritual sense, Priya. He's talking about self from a psychological standpoint, and you can have a difference between the two, right? This is the guy that invented positive psychology. So he's talking about all these things from a psychological standpoint. There's a spiritual self. It's not the same as a psychological self, just like it's not the same as citizen self, like when you're dealing with the government. They're all different selves. Trial and error are necessary because we're not here to figure out the how, but to be open to allowing things to work out and believing things will work out for our good. Therefore, we must die to our fears to think we can control the how things are going to work out. Okay. Don't disagree with you there. Lisa, oh my God, long time no see. Hi, Rich. Awesome program. How much do you think those you're surrounded with can affect you not becoming your highest, best, most successful self? A huge amount, Lisa. So Lisa is one of my ex's best friends, my ex-wife's best friends. And so it's great to see you, Lisa. Actually, I came across some really old pictures of us, like I guess about a month ago. So good to see you. Believe it or not, I would have answered this differently. I would have never said it doesn't matter, but I had no clue how much it does matter. And I don't know if this is for everyone, but I know for myself, it was actually quite shocking. I had sold my company, Lisa, to the bigger company that I had consulted for all those years. I've since bought it back. But in the time since I've last seen you, I sold it and bought it back. And I was working in Baltimore. I was coming back and forth. And for I don't even know how long, maybe 6 months, 8 months, I was on the second floor in this one area with like one division. And over time, I found myself feeling more and more depressed. And I really thought it had everything to do with me and nothing. It didn't even occur to me that it had anything to do with my environment. It just didn't. I automatically assumed that it was internal, right? And I was getting concerned. And then just by happenstance, I ended up going to a different division that was on the third floor, and the pace was much faster. The energy was higher. And immediately I found myself snapping back to how I was. So I would say it matters a lot, right? And it has even more impact on you if you're not aware of it. See, I think that in fighting, for example, it's the punch you do not see that knocks you out, right? Because when you know it, you can kind of brace for it. You're not as surprised. And I think when you're not aware that someone can impact you, you are just it's just flowing through you, as opposed to knowing this person might be a little toxic. I've certainly been around people who are toxic, and those are more obvious because you can kind of not allow any of that in, right? But it's the circumstances and situations and people where you're not clear that they're affecting you, where they can affect you the most. So what is the moral of that story? I would say that the moral of that story is to be very conscious of changes and feelings around different people. But for sure, who you're around makes a huge impact on performance, no doubt. Hey, Rich, have you done a live streaming on goal setting or identifying the higher reason for driving yourself to these goals? No, I don't think I have. And I'd be interested in doing that, Jason. Not anytime that soon, just because I'd want to spend a little bit of time thinking about it, reading about it. I don't definitely put myself out there as someone who really has that as figured out as other parts of life. For me, as I was sharing in some of the other live streams, the only purpose of a goal is to motivate me right now. And if it motivates me into action, gets me in pursuit, it's done its job. That's what a goal is. I don't believe that I believe that life has no meaning, that all the meaning that life has is meaning that we ascribe to it, right? It has no purpose unless the purpose that we decide. And I also think that we live a limited period of time, and when we die, life goes on without us. They throw dirt on top of us, and what determines how many people are going to be at our funeral is more the weather than how we lived our lives. And so we're here for a limited period of time. The purpose of a goal, therefore, is to make my life more enjoyable now. And the way it does that is it provides that alignment, and it gives me a reason to pursue. But having this whole goal structure is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. And it leads people to come to me at times and tell me that they're not motivated to achieve their goals. And it's like, well, then you don't have the right goals, because the only purpose of a goal is to motivate you to achieve. That's the only reason. Like, if you really buy into the fact that the achievement of any goal, if it's related to yourself, is going to make no difference 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road, no difference, right? Whether you make 10 grand or whether you make 10 million, it's going to be no difference long term for you. So when you truly appreciate that, there is no structures to goals. There is no like designing the perfect life, right? All there is now. And what's going to make now more fulfilling? Being in pursuit. So then my goals need to put me in pursuit, period. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less, right? There is no hierarchy. There's not like these over crazy fulfillment kind of things that happen. You know, so that's, Jason, like why I might not be the best guy to talk about it, because I certainly have my own perspective. Many restaurants that are open at full capacity are doing so with 1/5 the staff due to QR codes and ordering by smartphone. Interesting phenomena due to pandemic adaptations. Yes, at certain restaurants, but not super high-end restaurants, right? But yeah, totally. We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. That's propagated a lot. I don't know how much or how little I buy into that. I know it's said a lot, but I've never really thought it through as much, you know, and I don't like to take things like that as just certain, right? Because it's like the bullshit thing, like we only use 10% of our brain. Well, maybe you only use 10% of your brain. Most people use 100% of their brain every day. It's just different parts of the brain at all times. So these stupid ideas, like they get parroted out in self-help stuff, like we only use 10% of our brain, is a crock, right? And conceptually, yes, we certainly characteristics of the people that we spend the most time with do rub off on us. And if we hang out with fat people, we're more likely to be fat. If one of our friends gets fat, we're more likely to get fat. But I don't think it's as simple as that. Psychology relates to the mind alone. Therefore, I said I call it mind management. Mind can only discuss consciousness and unconscious states. Consciousness is beyond the mind. I also favor psychology, and I don't find it contradicting philosophy of non-dual knowledge. The mind is dual consciousness. It's non-dual. But I will accept his assumptions in relation to the mind. However, it's misleading and prevents progress. Also in mind management, terminology used also enables or disables the way we can see. I'm not sure what you're saying in total, Priya, but like I read this great book years ago called Why Everyone, and then it has like a little enye and it says else is a hypocrite. And what it's all about is that there is no genetic advantage to having all parts of our brain communicating with one another. And so we think of consciousness as the CEO, as the Oval Office. Consciousness is just the press office. It's just spin, right? If you, like, you know, if you, like, I was just listening to something this morning and they were talking about, you know, people with certain brain injuries and like someone who didn't have, like, their memory was completely shot, right? So a doctor would come in, have like a zapper on their hand to shake his hand, zap him, and then would leave, come back 3 minutes later, go to shake the person's hand. The person wouldn't shake his hand. Why won't you shake my hand? I don't really like shaking people's hands. And the person believes it. They're not lying. The person believes it. So how does that happen? That happens because your consciousness is making up reasons all the time. And there's other parts of the brain that are doing its thing outside of your consciousness. There's no reason for us to be conscious of everything that happens. And a lot of times our, like, different parts of the brain are acting, and it's not like consciousness just comes up with reasons. So it's something to think about, right? Like, that's why they can detect movement before you've made the decision. So nobody really fully comprehends how we operate, right? The brain is the most complicated thing on the planet. And yeah, And so therefore the self is too. And I'm very personally, Priya, no, I'm not making any comments about anything you said specific, but personally, I don't think anyone's got it all figured out, period. Period. And anyone who claims they've got it all figured out, I'm immediately suspect of. My observation is that people tend to find what they are looking for. I agree. To the extent that is true, it is worth considering what one is giving action towards. I choose to be an optimist for most topics, and more possibilities seem to arise from that perspective than otherwise. One can choose to come from a place of love, and powerful choices like that make huge differences. Totally agree, Tim. Totally agree. Kurt, how much does what you think about determine your life, your business, et cetera? I assume that what you pay attention to is what determines your thinking, like reading, et cetera. Is that correct? Yes, certainly is correct, right? And what you notice is not versus not notice is not random. It's based on what else is going on in the mind, right? So that's why it's not enough to know what it is you want. You also have to know what to notice for to find what you want, because that's translating a goal or desire or intention into concrete physicalness by saying, what do I have to notice for? What would be a sign that would then be a clue that would be a road to what it is I want? And I find that most people don't do that. So because of that, they do not spot the opportunities that are right in front of them, right? It's sort of like, I've told this story before too, but like, it's kind of like when I was at this Brendan Bouchard event, right? Brendan had invited me. I was hanging out. I went to lunch, and I'm sure I've done this. So I'm not like, but I hope I've never done it after this date, because I sat down with someone and I was sitting with my team, and there was like a couple people on the other side, like guests, attendees, right? Now, these people would have no reason to know who I am. None, right? I never got on stage once. I didn't, no, I was never even in the room for the most part. I caught like one presentation. So I said, hi, my name's Rich, to the person that was sitting across from me. Like, how long have you been following Brendan? Oh, I just found him recently. I saw an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine, blah, blah, blah. Oh, cool. What do you want to do? I want to teach entrepreneurs how to systematize and strategize and scale their businesses. Oh, cool. And then he talked for like the next 45 minutes. He didn't know that the guy that kind of invented that whole space online he was talking to, right? He wanted to do it for entrepreneurs, like what I paved the way for him. And he never asked, and I never told him. And that was his loss, right? Had he asked me what I do, I would have said exactly what it is you want to do. And I'm one of the best at it. And I'm one of the most highly paid at it. So that's what I mean. There are opportunities around you all the time. And most people are not aware of it. They don't see it. And they also don't share their vision of what they're trying to create. And because of that, then other people can't look for them either. So I'd say, Kurt, that is much more how it determines your life than a secret kind of thing. I love obstacles more than pleasures too. I can only be when I'm in love with the obstacles in the process, walking by faith and trusting God, letting everything be. I let go and let God. Yeah, sometimes that's easier said than done. I certainly don't want to give anyone the thought that I've got, like I'm a yogi and that I'm always calm and everything is always wonderful. Certainly not the case. I feel like I'm better than average for most things, as it relates to this, but I certainly don't have all this figured out. And I certainly believe that I could live my life in a more productive and also fulfilling way. And it's a journey and it's a process, right? I am nothing like the 5 people I'm around because I am who I am. So I agree, Rich, that it's a cute statement, but it's not truly relevant. I can't even discuss who I am with most people, LOL. Well, Jeremiah, the other thing is that is there really just one you, right? Because like, I think I shared this, that when I took like the spiral dynamics or the Graves model, which are the models that sit above Maslow, like as far as self-actualization, and I asked the gentleman, like, what does my result mean? And he said, your result means that you're trying to figure out like who you really are. And I'm like, okay, and what's the next stage? Well, the next stage is you realize there is no you, that there is only you in context, and who you are is who you need to be in any given context. And those are very different. So who I am when I'm giving business advice, for example, is very different than if I had to, let's see, if I had to like pick up a member of the opposite sex. I have very little confidence in that area, right? It's just never been my thing. But with business, I have 100% confidence. I'm a different person. I show up differently. I speak differently, right? I am, and so there is no me. Which one is me? They're both me. And I am whatever is required in any given context. And I don't know that I took that test a long time ago. I don't know that I've ever gotten to the place where I am whatever is needed in any given moment, but I'd like to think I've moved more towards that. And I've spent a lot less time trying to figure out who am I, right? Because who I am is different in any given moment, depending on what the environment and context requires. And I love the way that that kind of summarizes it, because it means that I'm not trapped by my past, not trapped by my future, that I can be whoever I need to be in any given moment to get the outcome that I most want, which is what I'm pursuing. And so I find that very liberating, right? It also solves a lot of time about who am I? What am like, who's the real me? I know I sure don't have it all figured out. LOL, that's for sure. Cam, you're a smart dude. Hey, Rich, what do you think of the two notions of 1, create urgency in life, 2, raise your standards? Hard to disagree with either one of those, Jamie. I find that when I operate under urgency, I do get a lot more done. I am more productive. And certainly also there's a motivating kind of momentum, you could say. And having higher standards certainly can help. I think, though, that not everything in life needs to be urgent, right? Chill time, relax, but as far as work goes, yeah, I think those things can only help. You are talking of conscious, not consciousness. The mind is but a shadow of the self, but okay. I am talking of consciousness. But no, the person's not unconscious, right? The person is conscious. And what they believe the reason they're doing something, which they would swear on a stack of Bibles, say that it's totally the reason. They don't like shaking people's hands, and they'd have no recollection, no understanding. They would think you were lying if you told them that, right? Because the different parts of the brain do different things. And there's, like I said, there's no biological advantage to having consciousness know what the rest of the mind is up to. There just isn't. Also, thanks for dropping the blog series in the group on authority building. Really awesome, man. Oh, I'm glad you guys like that. I just found it on my hard drive. It was something I wrote a long time ago. We all wear different hats at different moments in life. We adapt to what we need to be. Yeah, and what I would say in this kind of topic, right, each of you has your own opinions, and your opinions are no less or more than mine. They're all different, right? And when it comes to stuff like this, I don't put myself out as an expert. as this relates to being a better entrepreneur, I feel like when we start to move into the entrepreneurial space, this is where my level of expertise really kind of is significant. But when it comes to consciousness, brain, I think I'm well read, but I'm no expert by any stretch, right? I'm just sharing my opinions. And by all means, if you have a different opinion, you could be right and I could be wrong. Okay. I really want to get to the juicy stuff, and I'm hoping I can take you there. Those who attain it develop a strong... Okay, blah, blah. When a person is able to organize his or her consciousness so as to experience flow as often as possible, the quality of life is inevitably going to improve, right? And I agree. But we haven't really... This is all foreplay, it feels like. The battle is not really against the self, but against entropy that brings disorder to consciousness. It's really a battle for the self. It's a struggle for establishing control over attention. Anyone who has experienced flow knows that deep enjoyment it provides requires an equal degree of discipline, concentration, and that's why meditation, from my perspective, is so critical as it relates to this. Complexity and growth of the self. Following a flow experience, the organization of the self is more complex than it had been before. Complexity is the result of two broad psychological processes. The self becomes more differentiated as a result of flow because overcoming a challenge inevitably leads to a person feeling more capable and more skilled with more updated, let's say, mental maps and distinctions. Complexity also involves a second dimension, the integration of autonomous parts. A complex engine, for instance, not only has many separate components, each performing a different function, and I must have cut off the rest. Flow helps to integrate the self because in that state of deep concentration, consciousness is usually well ordered. Thoughts, intentions, feelings, and all the senses are focused on the same goal. In fact, they have to. So that is what flow is. Like, you don't have flow unless you can't have flow working on something and thinking about something else. You can't have flow working on something and having feelings about something else, right? Or even thoughts. Flow is important both because it makes the present instantly more enjoyable and because it builds the self-confidence that allows us to develop skills and contributions to humankind. There are two main strategies we can adapt to improve the quality of life. The first is try to make external conditions match our goals. The second is to change how we experience external conditions to make them fit our goals better. Neither of these strategies is effective when used alone. Even though we recognize that material success may not bring happiness, we engage in an endless struggle to reach external goals, expecting they will improve life, right? And, I believe that people don't really believe that having this versus that, like when they say that'll make them happy, right? They can't believe that they could be happy without it. So someone wants to make $1 million, right? And you say to them, you're not going to be any more or less happy whether you have that or not. Maybe in the moment, but, a little bit later, no difference. Most people do not believe that. Even if they could parrot it and say it, they still believe that if they had more, if life was a little bit better, they would be happier. That's what I believe, right? That I believe that most people, to whatever degree, and there's probably many different levels of degree, but that it's not easy for most people to believe that life wouldn't be better and they wouldn't be happier if they had more, if they got more, what have you, right? The bottom line is rather how we feel about ourselves and about what happens to us. To improve our life, one must improve the quality of experience. Most people first think that happiness consists in experiencing pleasure, right? Good food, good sex, all the comforts that money can buy. Pleasure is a feeling of contentment that one achieves whenever information is in consciousness says that expectations set by biological programs or by social conditioning have been met. Pleasure is an important component of the quality of life, but by itself does not bring happiness. And I agree with that 100%. I wonder if you guys do, right? That it's not pleasure that brings happiness. Enjoyable events occur when a person has not only met some prior expectation or satisfied a need or a desire, but also gone beyond what he or she has been programmed to do and achieved something unexpected, perhaps something even unimagined before. Enjoyment is characterized by this forward movement, by a sense of novelty, a sense of accomplishment. I wonder what, no sound? Hello? Oh, crap. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me? I think you can hear me. I see one no sound. Let me know if you can hear me. I'll put this in the post too. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, you can hear me. Cool. All right. Pat, you must have to, well, Pat, you're not going to hear me. All right, cool. All right. Where am I? There I am. Okay. Experiences that give pleasure can also give enjoyment, but the two sensations are quite different. For instance, everybody takes pleasure in eating. To enjoy food, however, is more difficult. A gourmet enjoys eating, as does anyone who pays enough attention to a meal so as to discriminate the various sensations provided by it. As this example suggests, we can experience pleasure without any investment of psychic energy, whereas enjoyment happens only as a result of an unusual investment of intention. So, in other words, there's a difference between enjoying something and receiving pleasure. Receiving pleasure is completely a physical experience, right? Enjoyment, you are now engaging the mind. So I can't enjoy an expensive bottle of wine because I don't have the palate for it. I don't appreciate what I'm tasting. So I can't enjoy it. It might be pleasurable if it happens to taste great, but I couldn't, there's no mental process to it. I wonder if that makes sense for most people. All right. Geez, we didn't get as far as I thought. I'm really going to have to process these even more before I share. So there's going to be one more on flow. How similarly very different activities were described when they were going well. Regardless of culture, stage of modernization, social class or age, or gender, the respondents described enjoyment in very much the same way. In sum, optimal experience and the psychological conditions that make it happen seem to be the same the world over. The phenomenology of enjoyment has 8 major components. Okay. First, the experience usually occurs when we confront tasks we have a chance of completing. Second, we must be able to concentrate on what we're doing. Third, the concentration is usually possible because the task undertaken has clear goals. Fourth, provides immediate feedback. Fifth, removes from awareness the worries and frustrations of everyday life. If that doesn't happen, there is no flow. Enjoyable experiences allow people to exercise a sense of control over their actions. Seventh, concern for the self disappears. Right? There is no perfectionism, procrastination, and flow. And finally, the sense of duration of time is altered. Those are the 8 components. A challenging activity that requires skill. Overwhelming proportion of optimal experiences are reported to occur within sequence of activities that are goal-directed and bounded by rules. Activities that require the investment of psychic energy that could not be done without the appropriate skills. For those who don't have the right skills, the activity is not challenging. It is simply meaningless. One simple way to find challenges is to enter a competitive situation. The challenges of competition can be stimulating and enjoyable, but when beating the opponent takes precedent in the mind over performing as well as possible, enjoyment tends to disappear. Competition is enjoyable only when it's a means to perfect one's skills. When it becomes an end in itself, it ceases to be fun. activities that provide enjoyment are often those that we have designed for this very purpose. Games, sports, artistic, and literary forms were developed over the centuries for us to express the purpose of enriching lives with enjoyable experiences. So I think that, it's funny. Like I said, I didn't get as far again as I wanted to, which kind of sucks. What occurred to me as I was going through these notes, and the rest of the notes I will hit up on Thursday, and then I'll finally share some notes with you guys. And maybe I will have consolidated these a lot more, is that to me, it's very comparable to Hyperfocus. It's very comparable to Deep Work by Cal Newport. These all kind of have similar characteristics, right? You have a clear goal. There's a way of judging your feedback, right? Whether it's, with me in writing, it's like how much I've written so far, what I've written, etc. Right? It's really a shutting out of everything else around you, not necessarily by decision, just by pulling you in. And it's that time where you feel most fulfilled, most on task, most on point. You produce your best work, and it doesn't require any effort once you're in that zone to produce that work. And that's why, like, a distraction or an interruption when you're in that flow state is damaging. It will take you at least a half an hour to get back to that, if you do. As an entrepreneur, right? Your goal should be to increasingly spend more time in flow each and every week. You should be aware of how much time you're spending in flow and what can you do to increase it. It leads to an overall greater happiness in life. It leads to greater success in performance. And it leads to a much increased output. So there is zero downside for this. I've also done a bunch of research, I put it together, on the nootropics that are most likely to augment and help with flow. And we'll cover those as well. So, all I did today was really go over notes, answer a few questions. Let's see if there's anything new. I see that you guys can hear me. It just freaks me out when one person says they can't hear me. I'm like, maybe I've been talking for 10 minutes to myself already. All right. I can hear you. Sound is fine. I can hear you. Okay. Sound is cool. I'm sorry. Refresh the page and sound return. Cool. The person can be both conscious and subconscious. The person is the projection of the mind, and so is his persona. Consciousness is beyond mind. Mind rises from consciousness upon waking up and sinking back when you fall asleep. The mind is but a shadow of the self. See, okay, so Priya, like when you say the mind is just a shadow of the self, is that something that a psychologist would agree with? See, because I don't think they would. They would be like, what are you talking about? They would say that that's a spiritual thought. That's not that. Show me the mind. Show me the shadow of the self. Like if you can't concretely show it to me, then it's not a psychological, it's not like physiological, it's spiritual. And therefore, can you disprove or prove that? And if you can't, then it's not really science. And therefore, that's why I'm saying it's spirituality. And there's nothing wrong with spirituality. But, the statement, the mind is but a shadow of the self, is in and of itself a spiritual statement. It's not a scientific one. It's not a psychological one. It is a spiritual one. And that's what I was talking about earlier. I did master this knowledge for 25 years, but I'm only speaking from a terminology point of view now, which is crucial, else it prevents progress attaining meditative state or self. In consciousness, there is no doer. The doer, by the way, because of you, I managed writing also the brand story about us, but so happy for your feedback. And I want introduce you to the best source of herbs for you. You will love it. Cool. Yeah, we can disagree and be agreeable. That's for sure. The mind is a group of thoughts. Yeah, that's for sure. So anyway, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you on all the different channels that are watching this. Look, I am here to answer any questions. As always, I appreciate that you guys are here. I appreciate if you commented, emoted, shared, and all of those things, especially if you shared. I will be here on Thursday from 6 to 8. And I will be recording a few YouTube videos on Thursday about flow. So I'm going to come in wickedly prepared, and at least that's the goal. That's the hope. And then we'll cut those YouTube videos, and then we should pick a new topic. So Thursday flow, I thought it was going to be, today was going to be the last one, but I'm going to have to do a bunch of work and consolidate what I have left now, understanding that I didn't even get through a quarter of my notes on that one book. So I got a little bit more reviewing to do, but thank you for being here, and thank you for participating and engaging with me. This would really suck if I was all alone, just talking to a wall. And so thanks, Lisa, for showing up. Thanks, Ava, for showing up. It's always fun to see my outside world kind of end up here with me in my work life. So with that said, have a wonderful Tuesday night and Wednesday and Thursday day. I will see most of you on Thursday night from 6 to 8. To Higher Profits and Beyond, Rich Sheffrin, over and out.